a mindfulness-based practice, that also is part of it. Easier with sensory first. If your nervous system's calm, it's going to be much easier for your mind to handle input. There's a little video that won't play on it, but I'll just explain it to you. Mindfulness, because that's another one of those words everyone uses, but no one knows what it means. It really is just about being able to understand what you're thinking and feeling at the exact same time. So somebody gets cut off in traffic, and what's their thought? Well, I'm pissed, right? And then you habitually become pissed, and you start getting angry and becoming what you said you were. With mindfulness, it's a little bit of like, my stomach's in knots. I'm starting to feel like my face is turning red. I feel hot. I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts. I would never, right? With those understandings, you can look at it and be like, oh, all of that's happening. I'm not taking on the fact I'm pissed, and now you're not chasing after that person. You're like, my face is hot and my stomach is tense. Well, that's very different than being pissed, and much easier to fix than being pissed. So mindfulness is just an awareness. It's nothing you have to do. It's really separating that identity piece of becoming your assumption versus just really being in your body. Somatic awareness and therapeutic movement. So it basically recognizes the trauma manifests physically as well as mentally and in the body, which is true. If you walk around and you're feeling stressed, what are you typically doing with your shoulders? Your stomach, your hands, your teeth, right? So you will manifest that way. What if you're doing that all day long and you logically were feeling fine, but you're walking around? What do you think your body's going to assume? That you're prepping, right? That you are that feeling. So being able to move through that physically helps let go of some of that. Little kids do that really great, right? Have you ever seen little kids and they're like, let's see if this works. Little kids. If you told a little 3-year-old it's time for bed and they won't go to bed, what are they going to do? Are they going to sit there and talk to you? Actually, I think it's best if I don't go to bed because I'm not really that tired. Do you want to sleep in the morning? I don't really want to sleep in the morning, so if I go to bed right now, I'm going to keep early, but if I don't, then I'm going to go to sleep in. So I can sleep in with you. Now what are they doing? What do they do instead?
Hit the floor screaming.
Yeah. There's a lot of times like this, like, oh, I'm not even. And then they're out. Same thing we told that child in the morning that they're going to Disney. And I'm like, well, that's lovely. I've always wanted to meet Jasmine, right? Their whole body's like, I'm doing what? And they're running around. And then we come adults. And we're like, well, I'm so mad. Super pissed. Really funny. It was hilarious. This is super fun. And just nothing is happening. That disconnect is not great. We cannot process through everything mentally. That in the world we live in now, that's just not possible. We're not 3, so we shouldn't process everything physically. But there does need to be a connection piece, so you have both options. Let's see if I can get this to play. This is the sensory room at our men's house that is an after action. Sensory modulation is an important part of self-regulation. It's your ability to calm your nervous system using all 8 of our senses. Right now I'm standing in our sensory room here at After Action, our program for first responders. You guys now have one also.
You said in the video all 8 of our senses?
Yes, we will get there. I love that you caught that. There we go. So when we're talking about this, remember, it's not about what you like and don't like. It's not about what you're thinking. It's really about your ability for your prefrontal cortex to integrate multisensory based on what you want versus what your survival system says. Because isn't that like sensory is your experience, right? How do you remember a good vacation?
Looking at pictures, talking about memories.
And typically when we're trying to recall it, right, we're like, oh, the temperature was this, and I heard this noise, and I felt this breeze, and I saw these colors. It's all about your sensory. That's how we experience the world. And if you happen to be a first responder, what you're experiencing day in and day out may not be something you want your sensory system to always recall. That's where that's important to be able to feel like you get to control and change that so you can live the life you want. So I'm going to go over some brain basics. This is important for you guys to understand how all of it works, because otherwise lights and sounds and smells are cool, and then that's it, which isn't going to really help. So most all humans, right, want to stay in homeostasis. What is homeostasis?
Yeah. Ground.
Yeah, it's kind of baseline, and it's kind of that ability to go up or down at any given time. It's your ability to function at a place that feels comfortable, which most humans function around 50%. And then they do this up and down. On the low side, they're functioning at 40%. And when they're feeling great, they're functioning at 60. Right? And kind of ebb and flow based on the day. Typical people, you see this regularly. What if you happen to be functioning at a higher level? Because you're processing every thought, every sound, and you're hyper vigilant. Your brain has to work a lot harder to process all that. So now you're up here, hyper vigilant, focusing on way too many things, but your body and brain still want their homeostasis. What has to happen for you to eventually have homeostasis then?
A big dump.
Yeah, it's going to even out somehow, and that's going to look something like that, right? Your system, your brain, basically is just over. It just cannot do anymore. Kind of one of those things when you get home and you're like, oh, I had such a long day, and then someone asks one thing, and you're like, what? I just can't do it anymore. And just something simple like, I don't like tuna fish. It's like, yeah. But that's because you're functioning at this lower level. It's not an attitude problem. It's literally your brain cannot hold any more information or process any more things. So if this is how you run and your world doesn't allow for this, it's going to be just a lot of up and down at any given time. Right? Now you're functioning at this constant up and down. So learning to figure out how to regulate that is important. So that's the typical how brains function, how people function. The other part of the brain science is your brain can only process so much at once. There's no such thing as processing nothing. But let's think about it. If you're being chased by a bear and you stub your toe, it hurts so bad, right? Because there's so many nerve endings. But the bear catches up and rips your arm off. How much did your toe hurt? No, a toe, right? That's totally irrelevant. Your brain is taking up all the space it can with the other injury. I feel like Disneyland does the same thing for me. There's just so much sensory input. By the end of the day, I could have broke my arm. I'm like, no, let's just go. Your brain always can only process so much at once. On the flip side, there's no such thing as processing nothing. Your brain would be brain dead if that happened, so it's never going to allow that. So going back to this chart, a normal person going between 40 and 60 day in and day out, if they get sent to solitary confinement, what happens to somebody if they're in solitary confinement for too long? Yeah, that was so nice of you. I normally say go compassion crazy, but yeah, their brain starts to create stuff. So they get down here, right? They're not dying, but their brain's like, oh, I've never been this low. This feels like I'm dying. I don't want to die. I'll just make some stuff up. Then they hear things, feel things, and see things that don't exist. What if you're functioning at that higher level and you just drop down to the normal level of 50? That's still a 40% drop, the same as if we took a typical person, put them in solitary confinement. With a 40% drop in input and processing, what do you think their brains do? Yes, they pick stuff up. same but different. Because they're still at the higher level of input, their brain's not making up feeling things, seeing things, and hearing things. Their brain will make up anxiety, agitation, worry, anger, because those are all very stimulating. So your brain's like, instead of relaxing, which is what everyone says, right? Just relax, just calm down. Your brain finally does, and it's like, ooh, this isn't my normal level. I got something for you. And then it starts making up everything that you didn't want. But now your brain's happy because it's back up to that 90% to 100. Okay, so we are going to do a quick trick. We're going to take a couple breaths, mostly for my own sake, because I speak really fast. Does my brain know that I'm speaking really fast, or does it know that I'm not getting oxygen?
You're not getting oxygen.
Does it care why I'm not getting oxygen?
No.
So what do you think happens to my nervous system?
Starts getting
It starts getting ramped up, it starts getting agitated, it's harder for me to focus, right? So that's the other piece. It's not about your interpretation. I know I'm just speaking fast. I love this stuff and I can go on for days. So I know I do. My My survival brain, however, does not. So part of my everything I do as I'm speaking is to put in natural full breaths. So it normally sounds something like, okay, stop. Right, and that's how I've integrated it. So that my body's like, ooh, are you freaking out? And then I take a breath and it's like, okay, you're okay. So I'm gonna have everyone put their hands in their stomach for a second. You're gonna take a deep breath in, and you take your breath in, your belly's gonna poke out. Typically do it in 3 parts, so it feels like a blower. Yeah, there you go. Hold it for just 3, 2, 1, and then you exhale, you're gonna make it loud like, okay, we're gonna do 2 more. Deep breath in, as much air as you can get. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and then push it out. Last one, in. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and push it out. So if a baby's breathing, or you're watching a puppy, how do babies and puppies breathe? What do you watch?
Their tummies.
Yeah, their tummies. I love it though when there's a whole bunch of people and you're like, take a deep breath and you see the whole room go. And that doesn't seem that much. But as typical animals, right, we should be breathing from our belly. It should look like as you get more oxygen, your belly expands. When you get less, it goes in. But because it's our society, right, we're like, walk with our stomachs sucked in all the time and not getting any air. So taking a second to do that can really help. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the little bear analogy into practice. So I'm going to have everyone open their warhead, but don't eat it yet. You may or may not like warheads, so that's kind of irrelevant.
Do we need the hygiene thing with it?
No, but yes, you'll want one after, I'm pretty sure.
No, you just suck on it long enough and it gets sweet.
Okay, so once it's open, you can do one of 2 things. If there's something you can think of that's irritating you or just been on your mind you can't let go of, try to think about and hold on to it. If you can't really or don't want to produce something that's irritating you, I want you to think of a pink elephant in as much detail as possible. You can close your eyes, really focus on it. What color pink, how big is it, its trunk, its tail. And when you feel like you can see that image clearly in your mind, go ahead and put the warhead in your mouth. What happened to your elephant?
It's gone.
What'd you say?
I like slow.
He likes our
Blood spills up. That's distracting.
It's distracting. I have something for you after. But yeah, for most of us, right, we didn't do anything. Warheads aren't magic. Literally, it's such an overwhelming input with it being that sour that for that few minutes, well, seconds, right, 30 seconds or so, your brain is just obsessed with that. Like, I can't think this is so sour. Same thing with an ice bath. You jump in an ice bath, I promise you have no thoughts. But that's such a quick, easy way to stop or redirect feelings. So typically, your brain works like a train on a train track. Once it's on that track, what has to happen for a train to change directions? Yeah, so we have to like literally physically alter the track, right? They pull a lever and it alters, and then the train can change. That's the same thing that happens with humans. So if I'm on a track of being upset, being emotional, being stuck in a flashback, whatever it is, you can't fix a thought with a thought. But if you stop your thought, you can redirect. Now, it may not happen immediately. I was working with someone who definitely had some anger issues, and it took 5 warheads before he could taste the sour. And he was, afterwards, it was funny, he was like, oh, the first 4 weren't sour. Yep, they were. Your brain was so stuck on that anger that you literally could not taste it. By the 5th one, you could. What do you think happens to his thought? Every time you stop a thought, your brain feels it less intense. So if I'm super angry, eat a warhead, maybe I go back to the same track, still angry. But now I eat another one. Now the 3rd one. By the 3rd one, my brain's like, you've already been through this 3 times, I don't care anymore. Right, you've literally made that track switch. Those are those 2. kind of went through this, but also the post-traumatic stress disorder can cause sensory modulation difficulties, meaning hyper or hypo responsive to sensory. Hyper is that hypervigilance, means you process every sensory thing, whether you want to or not. Have you ever been in a room and you know someone's talking to you, but you cannot hear them because other things are happening? That's not hypervigilance. Your brain is logically processing everything that's around it. Hypo is the opposite. It's where we get so run down and so overwhelmed or burnt out that just nothing is happening, right? That's typically where you want to isolate, where you want to be around nobody, where you want to lay in bed all day, where nothing, you have no response to something. You go out to a critical incident and you're like, did they die though? Right? It feels different because your sensory system is not responding. So, getting back to your question, how do we use all this? We tried the warhead trick. Here are the 8 senses. So you know the 5 ones, you learn them in kindergarten: sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. There's 3 more. You don't have to memorize them, but you should know what they are and how they regulate. So we're going to start with vestibular. Vestibular is inner ear balance. So as I'm up here doing this, how much vestibular input am I getting? Some, yeah. What about you guys right now? Any? No, because you're all sitting, leaning, or sitting on the back, right? You're not using that vestibular input. But think about it. What do you think this kind of movement does for our nervous system? Is it calming or alerting?
It seems calm, like when you're trying to calm a baby.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yep, when you try to calm a baby, they do that. And that's a natural instinct because it also helps the caretaker. So yes, it's helping the baby, but it's also helping you at the same time. That's why you see other people when they're rocking a baby, the person next to them is still doing the same thing. If you put a bunch of people together in a room that are all cooperating, you can look from above and you'll see them all kind of sway. Swaying is neurologically calming. It also says cooperation. So that's what vestibular is. If we were on a roller coaster, super alerting. The other one, the next one's proprioception. So I'm gonna have you guys close your eyes again. I want you to put your right finger 1 inch in front of your nose, but don't touch your nose. Okay, open your eyes. Are you correct? Okay, I just have to tell you this is hilarious. I do this all the time with all sorts of people, and I have yet to see anyone do this as a first responder. So, typical, people do that, and I'm like, are you right? And everyone does that. And it makes them laugh every single time. It's hilarious. And then I know with the first responders, I'm like, are you right? And they're like, yep. Okay, good. A really, really good sense of awareness of where you are in space. So, how did you know where 1 inch was? When you couldn't see anything and you weren't touching anything. Did you sense it? Yeah, that is part of your sensory system. It's your brain's ability to gauge pressure and movement in your joints instantaneously. So immediately your brain's like, okay, my shoulder's here, my elbow's here, gravity's here, my neck's here, that approximately puts me in this space. People who lack proprioception look like a bull in a china shop. And you see that sometimes, right? Little kids that are really big and grow really fast and have acclimated, and they just are kind of running around breaking things and running into stuff. Lots of people have that. It's just not great proprioception. The important thing about proprioception though is also how humans work through frustration. So remember we were talking about that little girl or little boy not going to bed? How much proprioception do you think that person had, that child had that moment? When they're clenching everything. A lot, right? Now they're working through it physically. When they let go, that's why they sleep. So think about a meeting you don't want to be in. Not mine, but a different one. And it's irritating. And they're going on for no reason. What are you doing with your jaw? Clenching. Hands. Yep, and sometimes feet, right? That is how humans work through frustration. So you're somewhere and you're like, oh, and you really are clenching your teeth. Your strongest joint in your body is your jaw, so that will be one of the first ways to feel frustration. You will typically clench your jaw or your hands before you're even realizing that you're frustrated.